It's a party. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna have. We're waiting for the what's that thing that you hit with a bat and candy falls out?
Oh.
Pinata. Yeah, we're waiting for the pinatas to
While
come.
you're doing that, I'm going to say.
Yeah, it's gonna be right over your desk.
Great. I love candy.
Yes, like I heard you like the very inspiring.
Do you need a press?
Yeah, you're in charge.
Yeah, you're the AV coordinator.
Yeah.
You're
And
good.
Andrew's.
All right, so I guess let's get into it. So Andrew, has everybody met Andrew? Have you met everybody? Yeah, maybe just go through just super quick and just like introduce yourself real quick. Want to do that? Terry, do it.
Terry Lalu.
And Terry does compliance for us. She's doing like paperwork and stuff like that. So like all the templates and stuff, which we put together, is for her, and then like she'll check over the paperwork that you have and like sign off on it. And once that's done, then we'll do the commissions. That's basically Terry's one. So I can just do it. And then Josh is a buyer's agent. He's been with us for a few weeks. Julio, new agent with us, brand new, first sort of day basically, right? But you have a lot of experience. Do you want to give a brief on your background?
Yes, I'm a licensed associate broker in Maryland and Puerto Rico. I just relocated back from Puerto Rico after 3 devastating hurricanes. I semi-retired, and I didn't realize that sometimes when you live in the tropics, it's a different lifestyle. There's no Blue Turtle, there's no hockey, there's no Nationals baseball, everything is Yankees. So I decided to come back after my nephew just got recalled back once I happened to leave for his security tour in Iraq.
Wow.
And I decided to come on board with Four Brothers Buy Houses because I saw an ad and I said, you know what, I just got back here 5 months ago, started to get back in the groove of real estate here is so different in Puerto Rico than here. So I'm here to take advantage of the opportunity and get my DC license becoming. So if you guys ever need me, I'm in Greenbelt, and my niche is REO properties. Yeah, good, bad, ugly, since we bought in the basement, turn my roof falling down. But this is where we cooperate with each other, try to move that inventory. Because it makes me look like a rock star too, when I can get things in the contract under 30 days.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, in this market, as long as it's priced right, that should be easy. All right, cool. And Tara?
Yep, I'm Tara. Virginia licensed and working on DC. Should take the test tomorrow. And mostly going to be working on the seller side and for listings and cash deals.
Mark?
Mark, licensed in DC, Maryland, Virginia. I've been working here for about 5-6 months now, and I do buyers and listings. So.
Yeah, but mostly on the listing side now.
Yeah, mostly listings now.
And Kevin, my partner, I don't know, do you want to give a quick 10 seconds or so?
Sure. Partners with John, licensed in all 3 jurisdictions, was an attorney before this, and overseeing a lot of the retail stuff that everybody's been working on here.
Go. And then Andrew?
I'm Andrew. I'm licensed in DC. I just joined, I said last Friday. I'll be licensed in Maryland hopefully next week. And I'm working on the buyer and listing side as well.
So, Megan was supposed to be here. I don't know if she's running late or whatever, but she's the other agent, and she's on the listing side for us. And then, is there anyone that we're forgetting? That's everybody, right?
Well, I guess Andrew.
All right, well, Andrew, obviously, who's out of town, and Tony, but I mean, in terms of the agents and stuff, that's everybody.
What about me?
Oh, Anastasia.
Yeah.
Oh, and then Gigi's our intern, handling legal affairs.
Yes.
All the girls wear your sweaters on.
Working expert.
I'm in law school, so.
Yeah, Gigi's in law school, so she's just here for the summer. So, and then Andrew, so when he comes, you'll probably meet him next week, so he does the inbound calls for us. He takes the inbound calls and schedules all the appointments. Tony is the other person. He's sick or something. He's been out for a couple days. So he's the other one that does calling for us. He does more of the outbound calling. So like Tony and Andrew are the ones who are going to schedule the appointments for you guys. So that's like I sent that email out to everybody, like share your calendar with Tony, share your calendar with Andrew, and then with Kevin. And so that's where you'll like get the appointments from. You know, that we've like promised you guys, so make sure that obviously you've done that if you haven't already. And yeah, basically the idea is, you know, we're not trying to have like 100 agents or anything. We're basically just gonna like see how this goes and make sure that we have enough leads to support everybody and that everybody is closing like we think that they should, you know. And then if we find that we still have extra like overflow leads, then at that point we would consider bringing on other agents. But we're gonna see how this goes for a while and make sure that we have enough for everybody and that, you know, we don't have too many agents, too few leads, basically. So this is the weekly sales training thing that we do. You know, this is definitely like a work in progress. I mean, like the brokerage thing, as you guys know, I mean, it's new since January. So I mean, we're figuring a lot of this shit out, you know, as we're doing it. So it's very much like a work in progress. So kind of bear with us. Did everybody see like the bullet point things that I sent out in the email in the Evernote? Okay. So we're basically just gonna go through that. So hopefully you guys, I guess we should probably print it out or something.
Yeah, have you seen that there? Probably not. Okay.
Okay. All right, let me join it. You want to print it out, I guess, then maybe you can start going through it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna go through the sales outline, how we think the sales meeting should be conducted. You're gonna see it's different than what a typical agent presentation is because we're trying to leverage our strengths because we're investors. Since 2010, we've done 180, 190 houses. So we're trying to leverage those strengths in the appointment, you know, as you'll see. So we're gonna go through like the bullet points. We'll like call on you guys and just like, if we can, like go through scripting or whatever. It's the first time a lot of you have seen it, so we'll just do the best we can. And then we might listen to like a recording of one of his appointments as well if we have time. Okay, so I'll print out, I guess, some copies of this and I'll give it to you guys.
Did everybody have a chance to read through the general principles from last Tuesday? Andrew, I don't know if you probably did not get that document, so that's okay. And Julio did not, obviously got it, but.
You mean the in-person meeting outline? This one?
Yeah, it's with, yes, the one pager that had the general principles, bill report,
Oh, yeah, I
expertise.
saw that too.
Did everybody have a chance to go through that
Yeah.
at least once, Marvel? Yeah. Okay. So the in-person meeting outline 21 that was sent around yesterday is basically a modification of that document. It's got a lot of the same principles, kind of steps to the meeting, but it's more bulleted, there's a little bit more scripting, and we're going to be building it out as we go. So a lot of the content in here is similar, if not identical to what you got before. For Tara and Mark, for people who saw this yesterday, did you have a chance to go through this new one, the outline that was sent around? Tara did? Okay. Mark, you're delinquent? So let's just go, let's kind of go through it like piece by piece. The first part, John's printing out copies for those who don't have electronic, but lay of the land, what is the seller expecting from the meeting? This is what John was talking about. It's a little bit different, right, than I guess a traditional agent meeting where you might go in, it could be a referral, and the person is like just kind of expecting you to come in and tell them what services you can provide to sell their house. So we're coming in to the meeting under a different premise, right, as an investor. So Tara, tell me what you kind of take away from these 3 bullets from the lay of the land and how we're trying to position ourselves as we go in to the meeting from this investor perspective that you might end up getting a listing. How do you sort of craft that positioning?
Okay. Well, we know that they typically expect basically full price for their house, maybe minus some discounts because it's in terrible shape, but they don't really know what that looks like. So we basically come in and take more of an educational approach to first finding out what their specific issues are, why they want to sell, what's motivating them, what a successful outcome would look like for them, and then craft how we're going to approach that unique situation. Everybody's situation is unique.
So let me ask you, so before we get too far down ahead in the outline, what are they expecting? What is the seller expecting when you get there?
You're expecting a number.
A cash offer.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? Okay. So And is every meeting going to result in a cash offer being made and considered accepted? No? Okay. So many of them, probably most of them, right, are going to result into, are going to be not a good fit cash, right? So it's going to be something more like, we're going to be offering, doing a listing ideally, right? So that's going to be the bulk of these meetings. So when you show up and they're saying, you're doing a walkthrough, hey, I'm going to check out the house, you're building rapport, you're talking to them, and then you finish walking through, they want a number, right? So what are some transitional things you can do to help kind of soften that expectation and transition more into talking about other options like listing? See what I mean, right? So they have a distinct expectation. So how do we kind of address that expectation and kind of work ourselves into a position where we can talk about the listing?
Well, at least the few that I've done so far, the house is just too nice to fit the profile. So, I'll say I'm embarrassed to give you what I would pay for it. Consider this, consider that. Just talking about listing it, about renting it out, just coming up with other options so to get them thinking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think that's one of the things that, if you look at the first bullet under reluctant buyer positioning, right? This house is not exactly a fit for our criteria. That's very similar to what Tara's saying, right? So this is a really nice house. Most of the houses that we look at are distressed. This is not that kind of situation, so I'm not sure it's going to be a good fit. But have you thought about options X, Y, and Z?
So you just can pass these around too. These are two of the postcards that I sent. So you get an idea of like what mail piece they're responding to. So sometimes it's cold calling as well. So if you just want to look at those and just like pass them around, those are just examples. So like they're kind of ridiculous mail pieces designed to generate a response. One is like a stick figure of somebody on it, and it just says if you want a cash offer, give us a call.
So under the reluctant buyer, the second bullet, we're not saying anything about us listing. We're inquiring about the position that we came to offer cash for the house. Probably not a fit for us. And then we are trying to initiate a conversation. We're genuinely curious about like, okay, if this doesn't work for us, what are you going to do? Have you talked to X, Y, and Z people? Have you talked to an agent? Trying to get a conversation kicked off where it's going to be organic. You can continue to build rapport, get information, and start to have a listing conversation. So, Marco, you've done a lot of appointments. Tell me, give me some scripting that's been effective for you in making that transition. You've done a walkthrough. You're sitting down, or you're finishing up the walkthrough. They're expecting an offer. It's not in play. Give me some scripting that has been effective to help kind of transition the seller to the idea of listing.
I'd say like I've briefly given the background of the company. I'm not sure if you know much about us. Like what we do is we'll go in, we'll do a cash offer on a house, and if it works for you, then we're more than willing, more than able to follow through with that. Just based on the condition of the house, it's in pretty good condition. So, like I said, what we usually do is we'll go in and fix up properties that have been a little bit more distressed, and I think that I'll basically just kind of hint at the fact that I think that they could get a lot more if they were to go retail, since it's already in good condition. There's not much we can do to the house.
Okay. And what kind of pushback have you gotten around that? Where they're, say, hey, wait a minute, what's the offer?
Typically I don't get that much bad feedback. I guess it just depends. It's a situation by situation thing. Like sometimes people are just like, oh no, like I wouldn't want to list it, and then that's where I'm just like, oh, like if you had a bad experience with a realtor before, like
okay,
kind of go into that.
So, what is the strategy that you're going for there? You're saying it's it's nice. We make cash offers, but this is nice. You probably get more. You're basically trying to entice them with getting more money on the market, right?
Right.
Okay. And so, how are you? I think that that's fair. But how can you better sort of differentiate yourself, right? versus other agents. And that's sort of what the reluctant buyer positioning is designed to do, right? So yes, they can get more money on the market, but they can get more money on the market through anybody. So with this positioning, we're trying to not only get them more money through the market, but we're also trying to get them to be interested in getting more money on the market with us. So, anybody had kind of remark? Do you have any kind of other scripting or thoughts on how based on what's in the bullets about how to kind of position that a little differently? So we're saying, we're coming from this vantage point that as an investor, right? So we're trying to demonstrate that we're different from anybody else that they might talk to, which is a traditional agent, because the bulk of our business, the core of our business, is investing. We buy, flip, renovate, flip houses, 190 houses that we've bought and sold, right? So we have sort of a level of expertise that exceeds the average agent, right? And so that's one kind of big difference. And at this point, pretty early in the meeting, we're trying to figure out, A, what their motivations are, and B, we're trying to kind of just have a conversation with them. We've told them we probably aren't going to buy the house, but we're not really trying to.
Just because if you're telling them that's what you should do, then it's more like a sale, more like you're
Exactly.
pushing them in a certain direction. Whereas if we're just telling them how we do it, then they'll probably agree that would probably be the best way for them too.
Right. And why would they care about our way of doing it?
Because we've got multiple sales over 180 the past year, so I mean they know the experience is there, and they know that we've gone through trial and error to get the most return on our properties.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We've already asked that we've sold how important it is to maximize the return on every single house that we sell. Right. I mean, a typical agent, like we talked before, isn't necessarily going to care about $5,000 more for their client. Like they might and they should, as like a fiduciary, but like for their own self-interest, 3% of $5,000 isn't that much money. They're more interested in getting the house sold and getting it sold like as easily kind of as possible. Right? For us, we're trying to maximize every single dollar that $5,000 for us is $5,000 into our pockets when we're selling these houses. So that's why we care so much more, and I spend so much more time trying to figure out how we can get the most money possible when we're selling our houses than what any traditional agent is going to do.
We're selling 40 or 50 houses a year. $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 per house is a lot. So that's a very compelling point. And like Mark said, it helps you stay in that neutral zone, right, where you're not trying to sell them, you're just giving them advice, telling them what you think by saying, hey, this is how we do it with our houses. You're telling them from the perspective of what our company does. People are generally going to be interested. They're going to want to hear that. They may have bought or sold one house in their life, so they're probably not going to have heard everything that Mark talked about with the coming soon and pricing it right. And I would say, here it's a little, it's a little different. It's obviously kind of, we're just sitting here, but when you go through that pricing piece, that's a huge, kind of point to hit on. You want to string it out, give anecdotes, make sure that they understand. You may have to repeat yourself. Really get into what the coming soon is, explain why it's not on the market, why it would be, it's good that it's not on the market, the days aren't counting, all the things that we've talked about. So that conversation, A, takes 10, 15, 20 minutes, and B, you want it to have the impact that you're going for, right? Like you want it to, and I think you're right, Mark, the number one kind of thing that you're trying to do there is demonstrate expertise. And if they don't totally follow, you're probably not going to, it's not going to be impactful to them. They're not going to take much away from it.
Right.
So what's something else that you've said or you've heard someone say that helps kind of differentiate us, that is a way to demonstrate expertise in the meeting? So Mark says coming soon and pricing. What's something else that you can talk about? When we sell our houses, we do this.
We'll focus on very targeted marketing. Buyers go to the internet today. I mean, it's like 99 point something % of buyers go to the internet. So so have to have a strong presence there and have properties found easily. So we put, you know, money behind that, and a lot of it. And because over time we found that that's where the biggest payback is in terms of selling the house quickly, in addition to pricing it right. That is a winning formula. So we'll spend, you know, about $45,000 every month, and a portion of that, about 12 to 15 perhaps, goes to the targeted ads, the internet marketing on Zillow, etc. And plus, on top of that, it's measurable. We know immediately what's working, what's not working, and
Good.
can adjust accordingly.
Yeah, that's a big one. You know, spend, you know, about $12,000 a month through Zillow, Trulia, and that we have found is critical for getting the most number of eyeballs on the house. We're paying for like premium placement on the website, right? That's kind of the punchline there. We pay a membership fee to have our houses placed at the top of the website so more people see it. There's kind of no substitute for the number of people that see it and having it priced right. Those are kind of like the two keys. So I don't think I've had a meeting where somebody didn't respond well to that, because nobody, you're generating expertise, and this is, and I think this is why Tara brought it up, because you're kind of telling them how the industry works. You're giving them some inside, you know, baseball here with, oh, actually these websites that you're probably very familiar with, let me tell you how they actually work. And then you're telling them something that people find that interesting. And then they're also going to find it compelling, you know, it's hard not to be compelled by having, you know, the point that it's going to be at the top. Every time somebody's searching any criteria that even resembles your house going to come up. People are going to be like, no, but, you know, that's compelling. So that's a good one. Anybody else? Other ideas on expertise? Terry?
Well, I had one come up yesterday. I kind of messed up on it, but talking about that they can use our contractors and get it at cost. If there's renovations and still painting, you know, whatever to be done, that's something that generally regular agents are not going to be able to offer, especially at cost. Nobody's going to do that.
Right.
So that is definitely very unique to us.
So I think that's exactly right. That is more of a sort of something that we can offer that is different. I think the expertise portion of that would be us saying, you know, if we were flipping this house, we would do this, this, and this. That's more the expertise part of it, right? So you're saying, you know, providing information that they're going to, you know, potentially be inclined to listen to, because this is what we do every day, right? And people have asked that question. I'm sure Mark has gotten that a bunch. They'll say, well, what would you do? You know, this is what you do all the time. What would you do? And being able to respond to that with a couple, you know, things is important. And I think probably more important is if they have been given advice by an agent, kind of saying why you think something or a couple of the things on the list that the agent gave them would not be the best things to do, would not get them the most bang for their buck. Then you're sort of really trying to demonstrate expertise by, yeah, I can see why they would say that, but really this and this are probably the things that are going to give you the best return.
And again, we're coming from a place where we're not trying to sell them on them listing the house with us. We're just educating them. We're helping them basically because we're there. We're still in that frame, you know, at this point. That's why they'll take our advice a lot more credibly than if they know we're trying to get them to list the house with us. And we're giving them advice from that frame. So we're still just saying, hey, you know, we were hoping we could buy it for cash. It's not quite fitting our model. We're still open to it, but it's not quite what we usually buy. And then we're having this conversation with them, and we're sharing our experiences with them and our expertise with them and all that stuff. So that's still the place it's coming from at this point.
Okay, so you're not mentioning the part about using contractors at cost, because that's kind of like a sell.
Yeah, that's like selling them. So we wouldn't do that at this point, because that makes it seem like we're trying to sell them on using us because we have these contractors at cost they can use. So we want to avoid that until probably like the very end.
Absolutely.
Basically of the call, because right now we're still just the non-commercial person sharing our experiences, expertise, our advice with them for free. So it might
Okay,
be
so
helpful.
what's a good way to introduce that point? Because I haven't used that one yet.
Yeah. Okay, so so at the end of the meeting, okay, if they're, ideally, you're gonna have built rapport, they're gonna like you, you'll have been there for a while, 2 hours. You'll have demonstrated expertise, you'll have diagnosed their motivation, and you will have talked through enough of these things about the coming soon, the pricing, the marketing, that they're gonna be sort of like invested in you and think that you know exactly what you're doing, and so then you ideally say, hey, so you know what, how about this? I can help you with this. You know, I'll get the I'll have my photographer come. We'll do this. We'll get everything set up. We'll list it for you. We'll market it. We'll plug you into our marketing program. You know, we'll get it sold for you. That's sort of the ideal transition. You're just basically like, okay, we'll do it for you. You know, like,
Yeah, this is the game plan, right?
yes, that's in the
Right,
game
so this is
plan.
at the bottom of the thing you have outlined the game plan. So that fits into the outline of game plan part. Like that's when we're sort of like, that's when we've transitioned to basically selling them, right?
Yes.
So basically, we're sort of said if you were to use us.
And I wouldn't bring up the doing work at cost. Yes, bring it up. The game plan is the time to do it, like John said, but you wouldn't want to bring that up with just anybody. Only if you think that you need a little something, a little extra push to get them over. And if they're, you know, if they have some reluctance about something because they still have some things that they have to do to the house or whatever, you can say, and you know what, I'll have my guys come and do it, you know, do A, B, and C for you at cost. And that way, we'll just get it done for you. We have an experienced crew, it'll get done right. And, you know, that's the way I would introduce it in the game plan at the end, after you've already kind of told them that you'll, you know, hey, I can do this for you type thing.
Because what's the downside of that, right? What's the downside of saying that we're going to do this work for you or we'll allow you to use our contractors, you're paying for it, make sure they're paying for it, right? But you can use our contractors at cost. What's the downside to bring that idea up?
You can't find, you never get to listen. They'll just paint it and so, thanks. My house is gorgeous.
Yeah. So that's possible, right? So they update it and then they just like the house and they decide not to sell. That's possible. What's another problem that could bring up? Time, right? Like what?
It's just a waste of time. It would be better if we could not bring it up on the front end, and if we just could try to get them to sell it as is, maybe doing a few things here and there, as opposed to trying to get somebody in and do some work and then do the pictures after that.
Right, exactly. And what have we found when people are trying to do work, either with our contractors or their own contractors? What have we seen?
They drag their feet.
Right, the very feet. It could go weeks and weeks, sometimes months. So anytime we're introducing a step like that, especially where they have to coordinate and organize things and all that stuff, adds a lot more time. So our advice is always, and it's the truth in this market, is always just to sell it as it is. Do a cleaning, we can do a light, do a light staging for you, and then just sell it as it is. You know, we'd recommend in our experience, if it was our house that we were selling and we bought this house, we would just turn around and sell it the way that it is now. We wouldn't spend the money to do painting and carpeting and any of that stuff. We would just clean it up as best possible, declutter it, maybe do a light staging and just sell it as it is. So it's true, and it also benefits us, and a lot of times the seller too. It just gets the house sold quite faster for them and for us, and they're not really going to be getting a whole lot more if they do updates a lot of times. And so the other demonstrate expertise stuff, I guess we want to touch on too. You're seeing those bullets were like the market stats, right? Like Tara, we talked about those, right? Stats about the average real estate agent. Right, the average agent sells 2.5 houses a year. The average agent spends, I think it's like $100 to $200 a house on marketing. Like once they get a listing, that's what they'll spend to actually market and advertise the house. Compared to the $12,000 a month that we're spending to market our houses on Trulia and Zillow and Redfin. 9 out of 10 for sale by owners end up listing with an agent. So if they decide they're going to try to sell for sale by owner, you need to let them know that 9 out of 10 times you're going to sell with an agent anyways. That's about us, right? 180, 190 houses sold since 2011, right? About 40 to 50 houses a year. You can say the last couple of years. We spent $45,000 a month in marketing, $12,000 a month, as we said, on Zillow and Trulia advertising. Then, we call it like shitting on other agents. It's we're half kidding, but like basically any advice. So since we're not trying to sell them, right? Since we're saying, well, we couldn't quite buy that, we're not sure if this fits our model to buy your house. We can still definitely explore it, but we're not sure it quite fits. And then we ask them, what would you do if you didn't sell it to an investor? Have you talked to any of agents about selling the house? What have they told you? And then when we hear that advice, then we are like planting seeds of doubt in it based on our experience as investors, saying why that may not be the best advice. But since they don't think we're trying to sell them, for us to list it, yeah, because we're not pushing them in that direction, then they'll actually listen to it, and then we can plant seeds of doubt about other agents without having to come out and be like, well, we want to be the ones to list it, because then they're not going to believe the stuff you're telling them.
And you know, depending on the situation, a lot of people either, you know, they know somebody or they talk to a friend who has a friend that's an agent or whatever, somebody at their church, whatever the case may be. You know, they've probably interacted with the agent at some point and maybe gotten a little bit of advice from them. You know, you can even go as far, you know, you use your judgment to say something like, you know, if you end up working with this agent, whoever it is that they have referenced, or whomever you end up working with, I would just, you know, bring up this idea that I told you about coming sooner, you know, something like that. You can even take it a step farther. Basically, like, whenever you work with one of these other clowns, whatever that may be, you know, since I'm telling you these things, it would be in your best interest and behoove you to relay some of this information to them to make sure that they do this for you. And that, you know, that's you know, that's really taking a step back from like selling or pushing, right? Or doing the exact opposite. And generally, I think pretty effective. Anything else on expertise? No? Okay. So on motivation, diagnosing motivation, you'll see there's a list of questions. The second half of that section. I think it's important that you want to be sort of diagnosing the motivation throughout the meeting, right? It is generally going to be ineffective to try and get all that information through one question and answer session, you know, at one 5-minute point. If you just ask them all those questions, you're probably not going to get the full picture. So kind of asking the question and asking it again later in a different way, and sort of constantly or throughout the meeting dropping questions in to try and draw out more information is key. So you can see here ways to try and suss out information from the seller, listed key questions. These are just a few examples. There's many more. Marco, what's an example of a question that you think is effective to get, that you could just drop in really at any time in a meeting? You know, you're talking like, oh, so when was the last time you?
Well, I guess one I usually ask is, it's like if we come in here with an offer that works for you guys, like how soon are you hoping to move?
Okay.
So I guess that kind of just like gauges how forward thinking they are about selling. Like if they're not really considering it, they're just interested with the offer, they're probably gonna be like, oh, well, I don't know, 3 months, something like that.
How would you ask that question if it was like minute 90 of the meeting and they know that you're not going to be doing any of the, that and they know that the cash offer is likely to not be what works here? How can you still ask that same question? It's a very good question. You know, you're basically trying to figure out what's your time frame.
Right.
How can you ask that question?
I guess you just be upfront with it, just like, so when you guys hoping to move?
Or if we had bought, you know, if we had come in and this worked for you, when would you have, you know, wanted to close?
Right.
Okay. Another way to do it.
Yeah, and then if I could add just real quick too, because one of the things you guys are going to find on these appointments is that the hardest ones to close are the ones where they're just not serious about selling. Right, like unlike a typical like listing sort of scenario where the person knows they want to sell, they have a timeline when they want the house sold by basically, and they're interviewing agents. They're serious. They're going to sell, and you would lose it because they pick another agent who they think's better than you. In our meetings, a good percentage, unfortunately, they just aren't serious about selling. They were like curious. They were curious to know what an investor would offer. You know, if you'll offer me twice what it's worth, I'll sell the house, sort of thing. They're hoping that you'll just offer, like, come with a briefcase with $1 million and pay twice what the house is worth, right? Stuff like that, right? So on those, there's not much that you can do. So diagnosing their seriousness about selling, their timeline by which they wanted the house sold by, if they didn't sell it, what would they do? To see if they have like an easy plan, like, oh, I don't care, I'll just, I just hang on to it and rent it, no big deal. Right? Then they don't have a lot of motivation to sell the house. So it's motivation around selling the house that typically, at least was my understanding, that like a regular listing appointment you're not going to do, you're not going to need to do as much of. That's a big thing for us, because the ones that don't really want to sell it in the next foreseeable future period of time, the next 3 to 6 months, are hard to close. But then any ones where they do want to close in the next 3 to 6, they do want to sell rather the next 3 to 6 months, we should get those like the overwhelming majority of the time, 80 or 90%. Because the benefit of our meetings is they don't typically have another agent that they're really serious about, right? They have someone from church, they have a friend, they have someone who sent them a postcard a year ago, they met with a year ago. So we need to beat those like 90% of the time, and we should be able to with this script. So we can get it as long as they want to sell. We just have to screen out when do they really want to sell and when do they not really want to sell. So that's how these meetings are different than what a typical like realtor listing appointment thing is going to walk into.
Lydia, do you have any other examples of questions you can drop in, you can ask to diagnose motivation? And let's say more specifically, like their time frame in selling. Do they want to sell in the next 6
I'm kind of
months?
on the same wavelength as you guys, because I've been doing it for so long, and you get that cold call when you have floor duty time, the traditional times. You haven't been there, it's kind of rough. Just wait for the phone to ring, and you're just ready to grab that appointment and say, yeah, I'll be right over, and then you're like, wow, a bomb hit this house. But I've been in a couple of listings where the outside, this guy doesn't do anything, but the inside is gorgeous. I've always asked him at the initial approach, this is me, this is what we do, and how fast you need to sell the home. I want to know that right away, because as I'm walking around and we're doing our walkthrough inspection, I'm kind of like making like my little mental notes what I need to address the house for success in order to sell it. So on this side, it's how fast do you need to sell? How fast do you need to close?
So let's say because many of these people, if you kind of come in with that right out of the gate, some people will tell you, some people won't. Especially in our meetings, they might say, well, just take a look at the house and tell me what your number is.
Right, because let me just say, a lot of times they're guarded because we're investors. They don't want to tip their hand. They think any information that they'll give us will tip their hand. Again, unlike an agent, they'll be more open to share with you. They know they're going to sell. They know they're going to hire an agent. They'll be a little more open. Here, a lot of times they're guarded. And so that's why a lot of times we have to like just warm up with a lot of small talk before they'll be open to sharing information with us like that. Just so you guys know, again, what you're walking into. The other quick thing is like, a lot of times they don't want to do shit to their house. The reason they responded to this like jank ass postcard that we sent, right, with the stick figures and all that, you guys saw that, right? Like it's weird stuff, right? Why does somebody call this? Why would you just call a realtor? It's weird. What? But like they do it because they don't want to go through the hassle and the inconvenience that they imagine in selling with an agent.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So when you're walking through, do you ask them like, when's the last time you changed the furnace? Like, do you ask them like those trigger questions to kind of trigger like, oh, I have to do that and it's really expensive, like that's coming up? Like, do you ask them like when they've changed major things or like the last time, I guess?
Yeah, I think that's fine to do. I
We typically ask the age.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or and the last time they changed as well.
Okay.
I mean, I do at least. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's also a way just to get them talking to.
Okay.
I mean, that's the main reason that
Right.
I do it. But it's helpful information.
Right.
But it's also just like something that people are not going to have a problem telling you.
Okay.
Generally.
Right.
What's the age of the furnace?
Right.
Yeah, they're neutral questions when they are defensive to
Right.
get them to open up. Right?
Okay.
Are those the 3-tab shingles or architectural? Like,
Right.
Right. I mean, I don't care.
Right.
But they can start talking about the roof and the
Okay.
shingles and stuff, and you start building rapport.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you at the beginning of the meeting, you're saying, when you want to move, a lot of times people are going to give you kind of a non-answer. So you do the walkthrough, you continue building rapport, talking to them. How do you sort of get back to that later in the meeting? What's another question you can ask to help diagnose motivation, Tara?
Maybe ask them where they originally came from.
Yeah, that's
Because
good.
sometimes people tend to think I'm going back when they retire. You know, like I'm from
Yeah.
Idaho. I've been here to work in the government for 20 years, and now I'm going back to wherever, right?
Yeah.
Like origination that brought them here.
I think that's good.
Yeah, and then when they're going to their next place too, like,
Yeah.
like, why are they going there? Oh, do you have family there? Or
Right.
you just like it there, or what? You know, and kind of like get them.
Tired of traffic.
Right. Yeah, you get them. You know, get them kind of thinking about how nice it'll be when they get there. Getting them maybe a little more motivated in the moment about why, hey, I just really should get this house sold, and it'd be really nice to be there right now.
What about just asking them, you know, I'm just curious, why did you meet with me today?
Yeah, definitely. All right. And like, why did you respond to that postcard? Like, what made you pick up the phone and call
Right,
that
and
card?
I think they'll be honest about that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty. You know, it depends. Like early on, again, a lot of times
I mean,
they actually.
I think you've had to build rapport by the time you ask that.
Yeah, exactly.
Not like
Yeah.
sit down and say, so why'd you meet with me today?
Yeah. But yeah, after you've built rapport, warmed them up, then definitely that's a good question. Why did you know, and why are you meeting with investors, not just selling with an agent? That's another just going negative one, right? Because we know they're going to go with an agent. They just maybe haven't realized it yet. We want them to go with us, but we're not pushing them to do that. We're not pitching ourselves, right? But why would they just call an agent?
I think most people are going. I think it's going to be hard in the first 30 minutes to get pretty much useful information, unless it's somebody who just happens to be very candid and open and is that personality. I think that first half hour through the walkthrough and the initial part of the conversation after we've done the walkthrough, it is going to be unlikely that you're going to get a whole lot out of them from these questions, because people say, "Well, you contacted me." If you ask them questions too early, and that's okay, you can overcome that. Well, the only reason you're here is because I got a phone call from, Desiree, or I got a postcard from Richard Croswell. And so,
These made up names?
Richard is a former employee. They're going to be guarded. So, like, these are all good questions, but that's why when we talked about at the beginning of the meeting, kind of easing into this sort of soft sell and talking about, hey, I'm not sure this is going to be a fit for us to buy, so now that since I'm sitting here, I'm just curious, what are you going to do now that's not going to work with me? And getting them talking is super effective at helping break down some of those initial barriers, much more so than asking some of these questions out of the gate, because 9 out of 10 times I think people are just going to be resistant or tell you something that's not true. So these are all good questions, but it's like it is so key to make sure that you've built rapport, demonstrated expertise, and come in from this angle that you're not like here to try and sell something. And then 90 minutes into the meeting, after they've kind of told you everything, and you can ask more and more questions, then you're going to get like a lot of really good information to help you put together a game plan for them at the end.
Yeah,
Can
and we'll
you
script
go-
that out. That statement, that transition statement's important. From how do you transition from their contact us to get a cash offer, and now we're trying to get them to list it with us, right? But we're not saying, hey, list it with us because here's how good we are. Right? We're not doing that, but we're wanting to get them to list it with us. That's the ultimate goal. And so, like, that transition of like, okay, it's not quite a fit for what we're looking for. We still might be able to work something out, but we're just not quite sure it's really the right profile for us. And I'm just curious, if you didn't sell to us, what would you do with it? Like, what's your backup plan, right? The defenses are down. I don't even think we can buy it, but gee whiz, what would you do with it? Like, that transition statement that's where the tipping point is, where you then start the conversation around listing. Again, without pitching ourselves as listing, we're going to pitch ourselves as investors, our expertise in selling houses, right? But that's where that transition kind of happens, right?
So can you go into like, look, you can probably just get way more for your house than I'm going to be able to offer you, kind of go in with like the I don't want you to get screwed out of money kind of angle? Or is that too like...
I think that's not generally that effective.
Okay.
It seems like it would be. I used
Right.
to say that all the time.
But no, okay.
Like
I want to help you get the most money kind of angle? No.
I think it's almost sort of like it puts them back in this arena. It's like, oh well, I can. If I'm just going to list it, then I can do that.
Right.
Anyway.
Okay.
And
Right.
I did that many times.
Okay.
And eventually came to the conclusion
It didn't
that
work.
it's sort of I think the benefits that you want to emphasize to them are not that.
Okay.
It's more like that you have expertise, that you're going to be able to market the property,
Okay.
get it priced right, get it done quickly. 'Cause
Right.
at the end of the day, most of the people that are soliciting a meeting with us are people who want to sell their house as is.
Right.
And so, kind of emphasizing that, how we can do that effectively, that as is, I don't want to do anything.
Right.
is
Okay.
So you're
probably
saying the
more
ease-
powerful.
You're saying
Okay.
the easiness of it?
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, because these are generally people who, right, like it's like I said like earlier, it's too much hassle, it's too much effort in their
Okay.
mind to list it with an agent. They don't want to go through all that. They don't want to have to fix things up. They don't want to have to spend money. They don't want to have to do showings. They don't want people traipsing through their house. They just don't want to do all that stuff.
Right.
But they still want to get basically full price for the house.
Right. Right.
Right. So this is not. There's not a world where this scenario
Everybody,
exists.
right?
Right. Like right. It doesn't exist in the world. Right. And so over the course of this conversation, and a lot of our pitch that you'll see when we're outlining the game plan is about how they can sell it as is, how we can do just one open house the first weekend. Everyone comes through just at one time. So you don't have people going through at all times. It's an hour on one Saturday. If you
Okay.
price it right, your house is sold after that first week. So you get all the benefits of an investor offer, as is quick, easy, no hassle, but with also the benefit of the retail sale, where you get the higher price. But we don't go there until they outline the game plan at the very
Okay.
end, because we are coming from this non-commercial, sharing our advice, sharing our opinions, sharing our expertise with you, just because, hey, we're here and we can't buy it, so we'll just help you.
Okay.
Right, and then just at the end, we're doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think what John said, the one open house, I mean, that's...
Right. Yeah.
That to me is the single most effective
Okay.
nugget in terms of, in my experience, that has resonated with people because
Okay.
if you say, this is how we do it, right? You're coming from that
Right.
point. When we sell our houses, we do this because it's all about, we price it right, we do one open house for an
Okay.
hour.
Okay.
Everybody comes in, sees each other.
Right.
45
Sign me up.
minutes, right? We got
Right.
turnstile, people are putting coins in.
Right. Right.
And then we say, hey, give us your best offer by Monday night, and then we know by Tuesday. People
Okay.
love that, right?
Right.
Because that plays to, in most of these people's cases, the motivation that got them to call us out.
Time and money, right?
It's
Easy
easy.
two things.
Yeah. It's basically, we're pitching the not a listing.
Yeah.
It's like we're the not an agent.
Okay.
Like we're the not an agent, right?
Yeah.
Like we're agents, and we'll just be sure to like reference that up front, disclose it and all that, right? Like we have a brokerage, we can say that obviously, but like we're the not an agent. And this is a not a listing, right? You get all the benefits of doing a listing with none of the hassle if you follow our process that we found through selling 190 of our own houses to be super effective, super quick and easy, and get a really good price for houses.
How often do you still want to hear the number once you say like?
That's a good question.
I don't think this is really right for us.
Maybe 1 out of 3, something like that. Yeah, a lot of people, they just kind of forget about it after a while. If you've been talking to them for long enough and this and that. Some people will circle back to it and be like, I'm just curious, like, what would it have been? And if it is somebody who is like really close to doing like a listing or whatever, I'll give them a number if they really want it, and it'll probably be a little more favorable than the actual number, like a slightly, maybe a little bit more generous, like the top end of what we might have been able to pay, just so it's not like super insulting if we have to go there. But I haven't really had a lot of problems with that being like people getting upset, because at that point you've built rapport, and you can also explain to them like, oh, well, transactional costs, like, oh, we'd have to buy it, we pay your closing costs, our closing costs, and we sell it, more closing costs, we pay buyer commission, we hold it for 4 months. People then, when you start adding it all up, people are like, oh, that sounds like a lot. Yeah. But yeah, probably maybe like a third of them are doing that.
And so we'll put scripting together too on how to best respond to that, basically as well, because that's going to be something that you guys are not going to have a lot of experience with, about how to, because we're basically just sort of skating by it essentially, because again, all the appointments you guys are going to be going on are ones that we know based on their motivation, how much they owe, and or the condition of the house, are going to be listings 98% of the time. These are all listings. So you're going in under the cash, on the cash premise, and we'll give you the cash number, and if they'll take it, great, right? So, but like that's not what is gonna happen. They're gonna, this is a listing opportunity, and this person is never gonna sell to an investor, because no investor will pay what they want. So we'll put some scripting together for that.
One other quick thing, the question, that's a question that comes up, Josh. I think the question that you should really be prepared for, that's probably a little tougher to handle, is that you're going to get is a question about, well, you're coming out here, you're telling me you can't buy, you're telling me my house is nice. I told the person over the phone that my house was in great condition. So why did you come? And that, I probably get that like 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4. That's tougher, because it's sort of like you knew what you were going to get into, and now you're telling me what I told you. And so that is one where, I would be interested, like Mark, if you've encountered that at points, what you've said. But I will generally say, like, oh, well, there's definitely things that we could do. We could, if we bought this house, we could still do, and I'll be like, we would do some finishes, whatever, I'll just name doorknobs, whatever, so something stupid. Vents, God only knows. And then, there are things that we could do. We could, we would be happy to buy it. But I just think that given kind of what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing from you, it's probably not a perfect fit. But we would, we probably still would buy it. But, so that way you're not, it doesn't seem so much like you came out and no one, like, you've kind of somewhat addressed it. But I would be interested to hear, like, Mark, have you had that come up?
Yeah, I think I just like deflected it and said, oh yeah, well, there was a time when we scheduled a meeting, the guy said his house was really nice and there was like a dead mouse in the living room or something like that, so.
That's a good answer, yeah.
Yes. Well, I mean, can we just say that, right? I mean, everyone's idea of what nice is different.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, you said it was nice on the phone, but like Mark said, we've come out to plenty of houses where they said it's nice, and my feet never touched the floor because there was, like, it was a hoarder house. Like, I just never, like, there was stuff everywhere. But it was nice to them. So that's why we go out to the house to see for ourselves. Everyone's opinion is a little different.
Never know until we never know until we put eyes on it. And that's like fair enough. I think it's fair enough.
It's outdated too.
What's that?
It's outdated. Like through the Kettering-Largo area of Central Avenue to Six Flags, big, gorgeous, beautiful houses, and you walk in and the master bathroom is in pink and the hallway bathroom's in blue.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Right. It's nice to them.
It's gorgeous, but they want full price for it, and based on the market, everything's been updated in the last 20 years.
The other thing is, like, sometimes people say that their house is nice, and then it turns out a bunch of stuff in the house, a bunch of things are not up to code. So it's not quite how they represented on the phone, but they didn't know that. That's another one that's like people are like, oh, okay.
But when you're 80 and you've updated something within 20 years, it's relative, right? You're
Right.
like, I just did this. You're like,
yeah. And people say that all the time.
Or they go,
this is tongue and groove
Yeah.
paneling
Yeah.
right here.
yeah, and to them it's like,
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
this is amazing.
Right, and that's why we have to see it, right? Because we don't know what nice means to you and to
Yeah.
you, and it's everyone's different.
Or it's in good condition, but you walk in and next thing you know, you're like, that smells like mold. And you look at the basement and you say, someone did a modified mold remediation. And that's their motivation. So they're telling you one thing, but you're seeing another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I'd be more than happy to, if you guys do the mold remediation certifications and asbestos. But you gotta cross the bridge on my side. You gotta come to me, and I like you both.
So that one, that's a question you guys should be prepared for. Like, and that's a tough. And I think the other one that you want to be prepared for is somebody who's very like a real kind of straight, like to the point person who's like doesn't want to like just like walk through the house. What's your offer? Okay, like you called me. What's your offer? Yeah, I'll consider it if it's fair. That's kind of the other one that is like extremely difficult to overcome because they're going to be not generally receptive to a lot of the things that I would say to build motivation. Like just so those are the two that I think are, and it's not that you can't break that down, but I think those are probably the two toughest scenarios in which we could still close it. So we can talk more about that, but just kind of keep that in mind.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. That's it. Thanks.
Before anybody goes, anybody who's in Maryland, can I get your business cards? I don't know. Anyone? Anybody want me there? Okay.
All right, and so I'm doing the training with.
Today?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, well, so a lot of it is stuff that we went over, so you probably
Oh,
don't have to. Yeah, it was the technology stuff.
Okay.
Um,
Is it 3rd again? I think we're leaving at 11. We're having 11 o'clock.
That appointment,
Okay.
that appointment is.
Oh, okay.
Training, but after
Yeah,
you do it,
yeah.
then let's talk.